Okay, and we're live. We got the new microphone. Let me go ahead and get this shared a few places. Got the new microphone. Hopefully we're liking that better. Okay, I wish I could just get to all the places I'd shared it from here. That would be so much easier. That is not the way it works. Okay, so let's just go to the groups I know I shared. Well, first let's slow down. Message it. Okay, now. Just gonna get it shared a few places. Okay, let's see here. Let's go and put it in all the groups where we've shared the thing, I suppose makes sense. Here's somewhere. Maybe it'd be easier to find it in the alerts. Yeah, already. Okay, let's see. Any group where it got commented on. It got commented on in DKMU. Commented on here. Oh. Sorcerer's Guild already got it there. There we are. Let's check and see how many people we got here. Hey, Ricky. Hello, GCC Studio. Froggy Eats Right. Do you ever make golems these days? I did a potato golem fairly recently, actually, for Penguin Moist Critical on YouTube. He has a court case coming up, and I wanted to pay him back for the time that he mentioned my channel on his and the surge that I got in viewership for that. So I felt like I owed him something. So I actually did him a potato golem. There's a short of it on my channel about that. I like your name by the way, Froggy T Wright. That's a very fun name. Okay, I do want to share this a few more places still, because we got a lot of people on Facebook that hopefully will be joining us for this particular endeavor. We are talking about sigil magic, but we're also going to be well, like it says on the picture for this one, we're going to be drawing the sigil together. And oh, good. I can hear a lot of sounds from your desktop, though. Yeah, we're gonna have to fix that. I think part of it is the stand that I'm using, and the phone itself. I mean, the computer itself is rather close by. So yeah, we're going to be talking about the cash cow sigil. We'll be drawing the cash cow sigil together to create abundance, stability, and group harmony. Yeah, keep pouring that whiskey in there like that. It's gonna be difficult to get that stability. We're drinking Tullamore Dew and Coke again. It's actual Coke this time. Let's see. Got a few more places we want to share this still. I'll just go there then. If I can't find it this way, I'll go there this way. There we are. Okay, and I don't think I've put it in typos yet. Okay. Let's see this. I'm going to share it regular a couple places. Control V, post. Post. All right. So, what's going on here? All right, there we go. I'm back. Wealth and prosperity be to you, the greatest chaos magician of all time. Well, I don't know if the greatest chaos magician of all time, but thank you. This is off topic, but I kind of just want to bypass money and see what I can do outside of that. I mean, ultimately, I agree. I am definitely more interested in concentrating and actually achieving higher levels of magical gnosis and ability than I am at acquiring money. But money is it's a necessary component of the mundane life, and being able to draw it from sorcery is a demonstration of ability, and it is a technique worth learning. There's something more I'm trying to say there about it. It's part of the learning curve, developing prosperity, and that's actually why the cash cow sigil, even though I call it the cash cow sigil, when I talk about the intent, I don't usually say wealth or money. I say abundance, because it doesn't have to be money with the cash cow sigil. Whatever it is that's going to create abundance and stability in your life, that often tends to take on the nature of money, but that is not the end all be all of the cash cow sigil. In fact, it's only part of it. That stability and group harmony are a big part of what is important to me about the cash cow sigil. Now, the cash cow sigil itself is well, I don't want to draw it just yet, but it is Taurus with Fehu in the center of it. It's actually, in a lot of ways, a very basic sigil, because all I did was literally put Taurus over top of Fehu to create the sigil. But that's not all that went into its creation process. There is actually a cause spirit attached to the cash cow sigil named Boris. And Boris is a very large, was a very large cow. And I actually found his skull through divination. I was going out somewhere to go turkey hunting, and I kept asking the runes about a particular place and what would I get if I go there. And it never really said success, but it kept giving me the rune Fehu, which is cattle, game, success. So I decided that even though not success, sorry. I just said it wasn't success and then turn around and say that. It's Behu, it's cattle, it's gain, often having to do with money, it's Freya's rune. But either way, I was like, okay, well, I get gain. So I decided I would go there and go hunting there that day, even though I didn't get a direct answer for yes, this will be a successful hunting trip. And I did not get a turkey that day, but I found a massive cow skull. I don't have Boris with me personally anymore. He's actually has a caretaker because when I moved up to Canada, they didn't let me bring him with me. There's some problems there, so he is under caretaker, but that's fine because he is connected to all of us. And his caretaker is actually someone I allowed him to choose who he would be given to before I came back up to Canada. And so that's where he is now. And they have been doing a lot of work with him. I think he chose them because, well, they do a lot of work with him. Even before I transferred I don't want to say ownership because we don't really own Boris. But before I transferred physical possession of Boris to Jody, I actually like I said, I asked his permission. I gave him a good oiling, but he chose her. And I think it's because she was already doing a lot of work with him and a lot of interesting work with him, probably more at the time than anyone else besides myself. Anyways, so Boris, who he is he is the steward of the cash cow sigil. And I got that massive skull, and then I inflated the caw inside of it. And I went through a very long process for that. But the first part was to carve that sigil deeply into the skull in the center. It's like I said, it's cash cow sigil, and it's right there in the middle. Let's see if I can find a good picture and we can share the screens maybe here. Do I have a good picture of Boris in here? Oh, maybe I don't. So screw yeah, this thing's not. Right. I'm not going to worry about that right now. I could probably find one online, but we'll get to that. I say you're the greatest because you taught me a lot of fantastic and luminous ways of doing chaos magic that no chaos magician rarely speak about. Thank you. That is wonderful to hear. I do try to keep myself as unorthodox as possible while still sticking to the mechanics of what actually works. And like I've said before, though, the most important lesson in all of that is that magic is going to work a little bit different for everybody. We have to find our own groove, our own way to resonate with it. But if I have helped you along your journey, that is most excellent, and that pleases me quite a bit. So the skull was that first put the cash cow sigil carved into it, and then we reintroduced life force energy. Now, it's important when working with caw spirits that anything you're going to alter about the spirit, you do before you insert the life force energy, which is usually inserted through the back of the skull. In this case, what I used for Boris was several germinated garlic cloves, which were encased in the back after having been buried for 9 days. And those were placed into his skull, and he was brought to life with tobacco smoke and a very long process of smoking him out and charging him over a long period and soothing him until he was ready to take on his role. And what his role is the steward of the cash cow sigil. He monitors all the lines of it and consumes any negative energy that is placed into the flow of the cash cow sigil. Like anything that if you use the cash cow sigil, when he comes to you, what he does is he eats up and destroys the negative energy, anything that is causing things to go awry in your life, and then converts that energy into stability, abundance, and group harmony. Um, some people do have a bit of a lulling effect when he first gets there because he's pounding down the ground and then things rise up after. But there have been many cases of people using the cash cow sigil and coming back and telling me about success, getting jobs, getting promotions. Some people just found money. Quite a few times I have actually used it myself for street performing. It was one of the things where I've found a huge advantage. Oh, did I say wealth? Could I lucid dream and activate it by energize it and place it in my subconscious mind to permanently stay in it? Is it going to make a big difference and beneficially affect my everyday life? Um, hmm. I mean, you could definitely lucid dream activate the cash cow sigil, and you may even have some kind of an experience with Boris at that point. If you manage to get it to permanently stay in your subconscious, I suppose it would have a quite profound effect on your mental stability. Not calling you mentally unstable, to be clear. I'm just saying that it would probably make you excessively um, stable. I wouldn't, I don't know anything about your own mental stability. I'm trying to make a comment there. Beneficially, if yeah, it's provides group harmony and abundance. If you've got it stuck in the back of your mind, I would imagine that it would help you see the potential for those things and actually guide you towards abundance, stability, and group harmony, and not just draw it towards you. Now, the cash cow sigil, it is better that you use it in conjunction with things like I was just talking about. I used to put it in my I used to draw one and put it in my wallet before I went street performing. I also use it anytime things are feeling unstable or when there's disharmony in the group, in any group that I'm in. I will sometimes just visualize the cash cow sigil, visualize it coming in and providing balance and stability and harmony to the situation. Um, Primarily, though, it is a money sigil. And I'm going to get back to a little bit more about Boris. Boris is like I said, he's the steward of the sigil. And what he does is make sure that it stays on track. We're going to get even more into that when we start talking about the mechanics of hyper sigils, because that's part of the reason that I made Boris, is because I knew I was going to be sharing this sigil from the first time that I created it. And so if I do that and it gets large, then it becomes a hyper sigil. And hyper sigils, once they're used a whole lot, will develop a kind of independence of their own if you don't take into account that possibility. And it can also get drawn off track by different things being used. Hey, Kira, good to see you here. Yeah, it can be drawn off track by people using it in different ways. That's why, like the Ellis sigil, it's such an odd thing. It's a linking sigil. For those that aren't familiar with it, it's basically an L with like a Sawilu looking S through it. It's kind of like a lightning bolt and an L. But it is a hyper sigil. It got used a whole bunch as a linking sigil, but people started putting it in weird places, putting it in crazy places, and it's got so much different stuff twisted up in it. And the awareness that it developed on its own. So it can be very unpredictable. And that's why when I made the cash cow sigil, I took all that into account. And before I ever shared the sigil, I put a steward on it that's already self-aware, already alive, and it is in their best interest. It is their motivation to keep the sigil on track, to tread the lines of the sigil and consume up all that negative energy and create abundance and stability with its passing. You can picture it as as his hooves are creating firm ground after he has eaten up all of the weeds that are sprouting up. And then his hooves are creating firm ground. He's creating fertilizer to create good soil so that positive things can grow. Kind of like how the buffalo are a keystone species in the grasslands. They come in, they keep everything, they eat everything down. They they provide nutrients to the soil. One thing I didn't do before we got on here. I'm gonna have to take my first intermission already. Sorry about that. Be right back. Okay. Be right back. Sorry. Just a moment. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. Yeah, well, Boris is the cause spirit. He isn't a guy. He is a bull. He's basically the ghost of a bull that it was reawakened inside of his skull. There's no problem with you using blood magic with the cash cow sigil. It's definitely not necessary, but it isn't an issue either. Okay, so what was I saying? Um, right, hyper sigils. Well, let's talk still a little bit more about the cash cow sigil and Boris, but that's what he was created for. Okay, so, um, like I was saying before, it is the zodiac symbol Taurus with the Norse rune Fehu placed in the center. I picked these particular images because the Taurus symbol is about a bull, but it's also an earth symbol. It provides stability, and there's also a lot of concept of abundance there as well. And in the Fehu, like I said, it was the rune that I kept seeing when I did that reading about what I was going to find if I went to the place where I found him. I kept getting just Fehu over and over again. So I figured that had to be part of it, but also Fehu is a rune of abundance and cattle. So the two of them together seemed like just the right sigil. And I was considering like moving it around and turning it into something, but as soon as I placed them on top of each other, it just kind of clicked. And so in some ways it's a very basic sigil because I didn't move anything around. I just put it together. But it seems to work quite well. And it's been one of the most popular sigils I've ever used. It isn't the only one that's gone a little viral, but this is definitely the biggest one. This reminds me, instead of wanting to do a money spell, I've been wanting to do a sanctuary spell. Basically, keep a stable life spell. Well, that's exactly what Boris is for. That's why I did it the way that I did, was because Boris, or I mean the sigil itself, well, I'm not much interested in wealth. I'm not interested in money. I mean, there are lots of things I'd like to have. There are lots of things I'd like to have that are usually connected to having money. So rather than going for wealth or a direct money sigil, I went for abundance because that is something I actually desire. I would like to have abundance. It's hard for me to want money because it's just, I have some blocks there, you know, but I can want abundance. I can want stability and group harmony. And it provides all of those things, or at least can help draw them into your life. You know, it's going to be relative to how you're at and what you're doing. And if you just draw the sigil and sit in your room, abundance isn't likely to just fall in through the window. Could, but typically you use the sigil and then go out and continue with your day. Do the things that are going to help create ability, abundance, stability, abundance, and group harmony. You still have to take the actions a lot of the time. Um, there is the reason we've picked now to do this. Thank you. If blood magic isn't necessary and just the symbol is enough to be in me subconscious is good. Thank you for the guidance and teachings. Absolutely. I if you choose for it to be in your subconscious, really blood magic might help with that, but I would try self hypnosis. I have a few videos on that. What you could do is using pendulum self hypnosis, um, put yourself into the hypnotic state. I do have some videos on that on the channel if you look up self hypnosis, and it will, you can use the self hypnosis to put you into the state where you are ready and then charge it from there, that through visualization, and place it into your subconscious mind if that's where you want to put it. And I don't think it'd be harmful, but I have not tried that particular method myself. Just to be clear, this would be an experiment on your part, and I'd love to hear results from it actually. Smoke of choice is lemon haze, super lemon haze as usual. Okay, so the cash cow sigil, and in a bit here I'm going to go ahead and draw the cash cow sigil on this this here, and then I'll be working with it again over time because this isn't exactly a release sigil. This is a containment sigil, and in some ways a summoning, because you were drawing Boris in by drawing the sigil and allowing his presence to give you stability, abundance, and group harmony. But as I said, it works on the intent, form, charge, containment model, and it's all being contained in Boris, but also in the images that you draw. You can, if you want, draw the sigil and burn it in a release type spell, and it will help draw some of that into you, but it's usually containment. Like we'll draw the sigil, charge it, and then keep it on you while you are doing whatever it is to attain abundance. Or you can keep one on your altar. This one, once it's drawn, is going to be put up there with some of the other sigils behind me here. And then it'll probably be worked with more over time. So I'm not going to finish it today. I'm just going to draw the actual sigil. And then because it's a containment spell, when you have a permanent image of it like that, that has been especially drawn in a group setting so that it has that special oomph, you can actually just keep that one and continue to charge it over time. Like I said, this one will be going on the back wall to be charged over and over again. It creates a web. This creates a web of abundance and desire for stability and group harmony amongst all the participants. Everyone who has ever drawn the sigil becomes part of that web of pathways through which Boris passes. So the more people that draw it, the more people that enter into the what's the word I'm looking for here? The more people that petition the cash cow sigil, the stronger those paths become, and the higher all of our boats will rise. A little bit of a mixed metaphor there, but you know what? Incoming tide raises all ships. All ships with all an incoming spell rises all sigils. So anytime anyone works with the cash cow sigil, they are helping to get that just a little bit more of a rise. Okay, let's see if this is the one. I can't remember which one I commented I think it's some typos or an art form. Here we are. Okay, so back over here for a second. Share screen. Facebook. So there's a picture of Boris there. He's this is when he was with me. Can't really see his sigil very well in this one. But we're going to share one other image while we're at it. Oh, hold on. Cancel. Back over here. Got to get the other one. This one's a little more creative. There we are. Share screen, Facebook. And this is where he is doing now. You can see the sigil on him there in between his eyes. There he is with his little Irish derby and some piggy banks. He seems very happy in his picture. It's like I say, it's a bit more it looks different than how I did it, but you know, that's okay. He seems quite happy with all of that. So let's go ahead and stop sharing screen now. Does anyone have any experience doing earth magic? It depends on what you mean by that. Okay, so any of you that are going to draw the cash cow sigil with me, we're going to start doing that here in just a moment. You don't have to do it right when I do. But it is good for it to be a shared experience at times. I just got to find the pastels I was looking for. So I would like to start with those. Here we are. Here's some pastels. Not quite the ones I was looking for. Probably should have set that up beforehand. This is one of those aspects of the craft that I struggle with, and that is preparing beforehand. At least in some ways. This particular way. Okay, we're not going to start with pastels. So, like I said, it doesn't really matter what color or anything. If you just have a pen and paper nearby, a pencil, whatever. And it doesn't have to be the only time you ever draw the sigil. Okay, good. At least this marker is working. I'm going to go ahead and start with a purple Sharpie, it turns out. Okay, so it just starts with a circle. I'm going to double the circle over here. Doesn't really matter how well you draw it, because it's not designed for skill of drawing or being exactly accurate. And there are some variations already in the sigil. Some people like to put the crescent just touching the top. I like to put it in just a little bit. And the F, or the Fehu, can either start all the way at the bottom or start kind of not touching the bottom. Either way is just fine. Okay. I'll get to your question here in just a moment, GCC. Okay, so like I said, I like to have it in just a little, but it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter which way you like to do it. You can double that one over if you want as well. I feel like it looks little more horn-like on the inside, and if you double it over a little. But like I say, that's just a matter of personal preference. And then we draw a happy little F. Happy little Fehu right there in the center. I'm going to go ahead and color that in. And then I'm going to give it its first charge, the Bob Ross of Chaos Magic. Thank you, my love. I was intentionally kind of trying to channel Bob Ross there a little with the happy little F. But, you know, we're usually happy when we're getting our Fs. Okay, so since this is... Oh, that's not going to work. Hold on. Since this is a cash sigil for Boris, there are several ways that you can charge the sigil. You can just charge it in any of your normal manners, just pumping energy into it, blowing smoke on it. You can use sexual energy if that's what you choose to do. But one of the best ways is with either tobacco or other substances if they are legal in your area, is definitely the blowing smoke. This is the method I actually suggest. Like I said, it doesn't matter what kind of smoke. If you don't smoke cigarettes or anything, you just use some incense. But got to get the pipe going well, just a moment. If you're going to use this method, I actually recommend a smaller pipe. Got to have some real lung power to do this with such a large pipe. Now, normally, we were doing Boris smokeouts. If you go back on my channel, you'll find a couple of them. I would actually be doing this onto the skull itself. I'm going to encourage Jody to do that very soon. But yeah, that's the basic charging method. Like I said, you don't have to use this method, but I do suggest smoke because in the charging of the sigil, in a way, you are essentially giving an offering to Boris, giving something to draw him towards you. And this is something that happened during his original charging. His original creation was the blowing of the smoke. Offerings of garlic are also advisable. I've been told he's also apparently quite partial to oh no, I forgot what it was. I think alfalfa. Absolutely. If you're going to dip a sigil in a simmer pot, though, as a chaotic mass herb, to make sure you're using non-toxic paper and ink if you're going to be drinking it afterwards, which could actually be an interesting idea. Okay, like draw the sigil and then have that as a way of taking it into yourself, especially if it was a sigil for like health, strength, anything where you were affected, where you're trying to affect yourself, which you could want ability, stability, and abundance in the self, and then steep it in a teapot. Drink the tea with that that has been charged with the sigil as well, and that would be a very interesting way of literally ingesting the sigil. Like I said, if you're gonna do that, make sure you're using non-toxic ingredients because the spell won't make the poison go away, and you kind of defeat your own purpose there. Okay, so that's charging the sigil for now. Like I said, if you wasn't able to do it with me at this moment, doing it at any time does still connect you to the web. I would love to see as many people draw one tonight at some time as possible because the more if we do a whole bunch of them all together, that it just causes a sudden expansion in the web. I've been kind of encouraging that all day on Facebook, even before I got here today. Okay, so taking bits of earth from different places and using them in workings. Um, yes, that's actually a very interesting phenomena. There are lots of different types. There's all kinds of different things you can get from grave dirt, and there's different rules about which part of the dirt you pick up from the grave to affect different things. You take from the head. Oh, um, I don't think I can tell that information. I almost did. I almost did, but that's closed system stuff that I really shouldn't just be spouting off on a live. But yes, um, I can talk about stuff from my own system though that I didn't learn from someone who made me promise to keep my make a cookie in the sigil shape and eat it. Make some for all your friends. Indeed. Oh, sorry, I tapped the mic there. That's probably loud. Um, that's a great idea, Romstead. What was I about to say? I had more to say on that matter. Um, I'm sorry, but I do have to go one more short intermission. Be right back. Okay. Talking about. So, yes, I was just. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I was just about to get to stuff like that because that I can talk about. There's some stuff very similar to what you were just asking about that is passed down tradition. Then that's from my own system. I can talk about that just fine. Yes, you can take earth from places. It's very similar to the idea of what I was talking about, the grave dirt, in that there is a vibe everywhere. There is an energy from every location. Taking a bit of energy from, or taking a bit of dirt from one of those places gives you a link to that place and allows you to take the momentum of that location and place it into spell work. I have a lot of dirt from well, I don't anymore. Actually, I didn't take any with me up here to Canada, but I used to keep dirt from our home place in Michigan where my ancestors were from because I would use that dirt for grounding and for different things like that nature. Yeah, investing firms would be great dirt for if you were gonna do well money magic like we're talking about today. Taking earth from banks, another great one. Uh, yeah, each one of those places, like the blood bank, plasma center, grocery store, they're each gonna have different vibes. They're each gonna have a different momentum to them. Actually, one of the most fascinating ideas, because you mentioned carpet, one of the most fascinating ideas I've ever seen in this category was when I did that episode of Hoarders. The lady who had the spirit and was also the one doing the hoarding. One of the things that she would do, and they acted like on the show, they acted like she was crazy for this, but it was actually great idea. What she would do was whenever the vibe of her house felt really good and awesome, she would go and vacuum it up and visualize that she was pulling in the momentum of how good the day was and carrying some of that into the vacuuming bag and keeping it there. And then she would bottle the contents of the vacuum from that day. And whenever she's having a really bad day, she would open up the jar and then she'd dump it all over the place. I think that was maybe getting it taken a little too far, but the idea in and of itself of collecting the dirt from a good day and keeping that momentum in a jar shelf in a jar on the shelf is a great idea. Mm. Well, Michigan is a very odd place. Um, it for me, it's a place of power because it's where my ancestry comes from, and it's where my great grandfather did his stuff. So, but it is a very strange place, and the forests. Well, people talk about Appalachia like it's a crazy like it's a scary like those are scary woods. Tells me they've never been to Michigan. You know, Evil Dead got it right, right? That's where Ash goes is Dearborn, Michigan to read from the Necronomicon in that series. You know, Michigan is quite the place. Yeah, there's plenty of things to be concerned about in those woods if you're not respectful. And especially, see, there's the thing, Appalachia, those are old woods. Oh, that was loud, eh? But Michigan, that's where old woods were cut down. That's where a place of beauty with massive white pines, an entire area was taken from that almost all new forest. Everything was cut down. As you know, you can barely even see the stumps these days. There's a lot of angry, angry spirits in Michigan. But to hear my great grandfather tell it, there always have been. I got into earth magic because earth is underrepresented in my birth chart. Makes sense, kind of balance yourself out. But there's also, while I'm on that, back to the earth magic, there is also a way to take a spirit with you when there's nothing else. Spirits can be carried in earth. That is a containment, a method of containment. Sometimes when you're dealing with certain types of elemental type spirits, I suppose they're mostly earth elementals, they will actually direct you to some dirt to take. And like you just kind of feel it like, okay, take this dirt here. This is the place. This is the one. And some spirits can contain themselves in that. I also have a friend. Now, this I would not allow in my home, but Ted Bundy took a lot of had a lot of his victims in Utah. And when I lived back in Utah, a person I knew actually went and collected dirt from one of the victim sites. And I think that could be used very powerfully in any kind of curse work directed at predators. But even still, there's a lot of juju in that. There's a lot of, because it could go the other way. But I just thought I'd bring that up for a minute. It's an interesting idea, but that's probably not something. Like I said, that's something I didn't want to mess with. There aren't too many things I'm like, oh, that's above my pay grade, but something like that, I just don't want to be near it. Too much. It's too much. Okay, so we're getting way off topic. Money magic in general. I believe that was the order that I put it on the oh, this reminds me. DEOSILWIDDERSHINS. Oh, there's where I messed up. Typos are an art form, but they don't belong in .com addresses. I do, speaking of money, I do offer both rune reading, tarot reading, and spell casting services. If you are interested in any of those, you can contact me through my email. And I will leave a link to that here. Excuse me. Okay. We'll pin that so that it can, just so that it's there. If anyone wants to find it. Okay. So, anyways, on to money magic in general. As I was saying about the cash cow sigil and why I picked abundance rather than trying to generate wealth or going some other route, is for me the what am I trying to say? I have trouble desiring money. It makes the intent wobbly because it's hard for me to intend that strongly that I want money, because really I would love to have enough money to not have to think about money. I dislike the whole concept of money. So when I do, and I'm not the only one that's like that. So when I do money magic, I tend to come at it a little bit sideways, like with the abundance for the cash cow sigil. At one point, I made what I would call a loam sigil, and that didn't seem to work at all. Loam, as in LOM, lots of money. That didn't seem to work so well. Um, I've tried quite a bit of working with gambling, but the lottery, if you've been paying attention to my channel, recently worked on trying to make a frog lottery ticket manifest that would bring me Audacious Bounty with Becky's Bounce, if you know what any about that is about. And actually, the lottery tickets did show up, but the run seemed to have ended yesterday. Actually, it was just today we scratched the last two of the available frog tickets that did appear. And I did manage to manifest lottery tickets, did not manage to manifest a significant win. And I would say so far, but I think they're all done now. So, um, as far as gambling, I have found a few things to be true. The more people are focused on something, the more desire is aimed at something like a lottery ticket, the harder it is to affect. I've never actually managed to win the lottery through spellcraft. That being said, there is a game called Keno, which is essentially the same game. It's got the little plastic balls in there, but they do it at casinos, and there's just a few of you watching. You know, whoever it happens to be playing, and it happens right there in front of you. That I've managed to affect quite a few times. Um, let's see. What else do we want to talk about with money magic? The things that people tend to use for money magic, well, I immediately think of the color green, and a lot of people associate green with money magic. But being up here in Canada, Felix actually asked me about that. And I was like, well, because green's the color of money. That's only true in the States. That is only true in the United States. Yeah, our money's green. But that green being the color of money does not transfer to the rest of the world. Oh, absolutely, money can be a distraction and definitely can bring the wrong people around. I've seen that a few times in my life when I had money. There's actually one example I can think of immediately off the bat is my cousin's friend who was always very rude to me. And as soon as she saw I had money, because I did have money for a while, there's suddenly total change in personality. Suddenly she's so nice and sweet, wants to do all these things for me, doesn't expect anything in return. Like, didn't even ask for the money. The simply fact that I had money made them act completely different. And I know they're kind of a bad person because I knew what they were like before they thought I had money. But if I hadn't saw that, I would think, oh wow, what a sweetheart. It affects people's behavior, absolutely. And that's part of the reason that I struggle with desiring money. But yeah, the green money is green only tracks in the States. Now, green is the color of growth and abundance. So, it's not just Americans that use green as a money spell, I don't think. But it doesn't have as strong of a connotation as we think it does. It is part of it. Like most of the money spells I cast before Boris, I used green. Because at least in my mind, and that resonates, green is the color of money. But this is one area where I've always struggled. I have to cast for success rather than money. Even with Boris, it's abundance. And if you are out there and you are having that same problem, you struggle with money spells, that is my biggest advice. Come at it a little bit sideways. I did have actually This is the remnants of my money crystal garden that I was working with, and that did seem to have some effect, but that was a slow containment. There is a whole bunch of well, it started with a bunch of superheated saline and with green food dye allowed to turn into crystals. And if you were seeing some of my old videos, it's one of the crystal gardens in the back when I was still in Utah and I had all the shelves behind me. Once I crushed all that, which you can see a video for that as well. I actually crushed all of it and I brought it here, turned it back into salt water. I'm trying to get some brine shrimp to live in there, but it seems like the dye is a bit too much. I don't seem to really be getting anywhere with that. So probably going to find a way to dehydrate all that back into salt at some point if it doesn't ever take here. Anyways, um, money is one of them things that sadly, money attracts money. A deeply low energy to it. Indeed. Indeed. It's drawing on something that is antithetical to most of the truly deep magical traditions. Most of your truly deep magical traditions come from places that didn't have such a hard attachment to money and this false sense of the material plane that is actually a narrative that this symbol is important. It is a magic itself. Like Felix has said before, money is one of the most powerful spells ever cast. And it's a mesmerization spell that has all kinds of people mesmerized. So casting magic directly for money, you have to be willing to be part of that illusion for that to work. But also, I was going to say that money attracts money. So, other than the cash cow sigil, one of the things that worked best and part of how that worked was I boiled money. I put money into it. I actually fed the money spell money. And that draws it in, that draws it together, that pulls, yeah, like attracts like. As above, so below, right? So if you have a money spell that actually has money, and you can use that to draw more money to you like a magnet. That I did have some success with. That was the most successful money spell I ever had outside of the Cash Cow Sigil itself. So that's another one that I would suggest, whether you're struggle with money or not, is to use a spell with money itself as a component. And it seems like the more money you use as a component, the more powerful the money spell becomes. There might be a point of diminishing returns there. Like if you boil $1,000, crush it up, and turn it into a spell component, I can't promise the spell is going to get you more than $1,000. I don't know. There might be a point where the amount of money that you sacrifice, just more than that makes no difference. I wouldn't know. I've never tried more than $20. But it did seem to work quite well. But it was all American money. And that might be part of the reason that part itself doesn't seem to be working as well, is because I'm not trying to draw American money anymore. I'm trying to draw Canadian money. Anyways, so we talk about money magics for a while. Doesn't seem like a big area of interest for everyone that's online at the moment, past the cash cow sigil. So now we're going to get on to the mechanics of a hyper sigil. We already started some of that. We've talked about it some already. But we'll go back over it. So, what is a hyper sigil? Let's start there. A hyper sigil is a sigil that is essentially gone viral, or at least becomes shared with more outside of the in group. right? If you have a sigil that you've made for your coven or your friends, your cabal, whatever you call your group, if it stays amongst you and everyone that's using it knows each other and is connected, then it's just something in your collective reality time and it stays with you. There's a possibility of even something like that taking on a sort of awareness after a while, but it's not guaranteed. And it's something that doesn't need some kind of a lock on it. Anything above that, oh, just threw my lighter. Once you start sharing it outside of your own group and people that you don't know and aren't necessarily connected to you start using this sigil, it can very easily take on a life of its own. A great example of this is the Ellis or linking sigil, which is one that went way viral. It's been around for a very long time now, and it's essentially a charging sigil. It was originally designed to, well, for two things: to prank reality, but also to provide a group charge by adding the linking sigil to your own sigil, because it's a battery. Yeah, everyone draws it and charges it, and then it has something for everyone to draw on. And that's kind of how the cash cow sigil works in a way, because we're creating a web of abundance and stability that anyone who draws the sigil can draw on that web, that well fount of abundance, stability, and group harmony that's created through each repetition of the sigil. And every time a cycle is repeated, every time, oh my gosh, I can't remember it all of a sudden. Every time a cycle is repeated, the momentum of its power increases. And so every time someone draws the sigil, it is strengthened. And that's exactly how a hyper sigil works. It gets repeated over and over and over and over again. Now, the problem with hyper sigils in general is that, well, anytime something gets repeated, there'll be little changes with it every time. And the Ellis, because of all the different ways people charged it, and because, well, there was a pranking reality concept in it from the beginning, the idea of making people see the absurd and the unexpected, then, well, it got all kinds of weirdness in it. And the linking sigil is still very powerful, but it had no core. It had nothing keeping it from being altered through each repetition. And so it went all over the place, and people charged it in all kinds of bizarre ways. And some people purposely put weird stuff into it to prank the other people and to make things go weird. So at this point, if you use the linking sigil, you need some kind of a filter, some kind of way to purify it back to its original intent. And that can be whatever you want it to be. It just make a sigil from the word filter and connect that with the linking sigil to filter it back to its original intent. And that can be quite effective. But what we ideally want to do, if we're going to knowingly create a hyper sigil, indeed, all sigils are like a spider's web in a way. But once we get to the hyper sigil, it's like more than one spider is weaving the web at that point. So unless you have something to keep it on track, the pattern of the web is going to get altered and come out in weird ways over time. And the more farther out from the original it is, the more bizarre and twisted it's going to get. So if we're using a hyper sigil, one of the key things that we have to do is find a way to keep that pattern locked in. I found the best way to do that is with, one could almost say, astral artificial intelligence with the creating of a steward. Now, in this case, the case of Boris, It wasn't artificial. Um, this alcohol is really doing a thing to me. I will be right back. One more intermission. Okay. I need to make sure I eat a little more before we start this. Okay, so as I was saying, what was I saying? Sigils are like spider webs, and that we need to keep the original pattern going. Artificial, astral artificial intelligence. Like I said, in the case of Boris, it wasn't artificial. And that's actually probably the best way to go if you have an opportune skull that would work out um, properly for the intent that it's connected to. Like, I couldn't have used the squirrel skull for the cash cow, like the cash squirrel sigil, because squirrels by nature, they stash things, but they forget where they stash things. They lose stuff all over the place. It wouldn't have been the proper type of personality. Plus, the Taurus wouldn't have fit. But when you're creating a hyper sigil, it needs to have a way to lock it in the original intent. You could try using a locking sigil alone for that, but it's probably going to still weaken over time. And there's still the problem with such things tending to take on a life of their own and eventually reaching sentience. So might as well just give it a personality from the beginning. If you're going to make a hyper sigil something you intend to share outside of your own circle, I suggest at least attaching some kind of servitor to it. That intent that is designed to, same as Boris, keep the original intent locked into the pattern of the sigil and remove any discrepancies or problems within the repetition. Like with the cash cow sigil, there are people that have actually added things to the sigil, like added their own sigil into part of it, or I've seen people do it with different planetary symbols instead of Taurus, but are still calling it the cash cow sigil. They've done a few different things, and it gets connected to the pathway in a way, but it's only that bit of the path. Yeah, the stuff they do to the sigil still is allowed to affect their rendition of the sigil, because that's their will pushing that out there. But it's not able to go backwards because Boris blocks any adjustments or changes to the pattern of the weave of the spell. So he keeps that functioning, he keeps that going. And that's what you need to create. It doesn't have to be as complex. If you have the right skull, like I said, you put carve the sigil into the skull, and then do that before you introduce any kind of new life force energy into the brain cavity. And as you're putting that sigil on, you're going to want to essentially understand that you are reprogramming a Ka spirit. A call spirit is what the word I was originally taught, but a Ka and a call are basically the same thing. So interesting the way we have coincidences like that. But anyways, it is created from the residual energy left behind in a skull that was created during the living process by the interaction of a soul interacting with the material plane inside of a skull. It creates an energy pattern. While we're alive, this is called the aura. When we die, that is when we die, it leaves behind this, well, not energy, but a residual pattern, which we then reinflate to create the ka. And you're going to be altering that by drawing the sigil onto the skull and creating essentially a hybrid being. It's altering the pattern enough that it becomes a kind of servitor, but it has its own nature in there as well. Are there any stories about anyone using an electromagnet to charge sigils? Absolutely. This has been done on several occasions. I haven't tried it myself, but I have seen people doing this and reporting on it in different Facebook groups. I think the first time I heard about someone talking about doing that was clear back in the Yahoo chat room days. I've used magnets themselves, but not necessarily electromagnets. But there are a lot of things along that path, and they certainly seem to work. To me, that's a form of radionics, where we're using the theater of science to create the narrative and context of a charge for the sigil. Um, some of last time I saw it was in CMG on Facebook, and the person was actually had a sigil that was on a magnet with coils around it. They claimed to have good results. Yes, you could, but in a case like that where it's not an actual skull, but a replica of a skull, unless you're actually just making a second vessel for Boris, you would still need to make the entire being, is the difference. Because with something like that, there's no residual life force energy. Part of what we're going for by using the skull in the first place is that there's already that aura there that we can reprogram just the touch, but still having that full solid core of an actual being. No, well, replica of an actual being, right? And if we get a replica skull, there's no residual life force energy left behind to reinflate. We're not creating a ghost. We're creating a tulpa or servitor, which would be the difference. But you could go that route for a hypersigil. You could even just make a servitor or tulpa that is connected to the sigil from the beginning. If you were doing something like that, you would want to share the idea of the tulpa along with the sigil. So if you were going to make a sigil, you were going to share, you would want to say, essentially, you'd want to make it the sigil of a being. Like, I'm trying to think of a good example without accidentally beginning the creation of something. Um, Mr. New News, and he could be a messenger spirit that lets people find out about things before other people, like a spirit to just bring information to you, and to be a sigil, Mr. New News, and that would be his whole thing. And you share that with other people, and everyone that shared it would be sharing Mr. New News's sigil. And then that servitor, or tulpa at that point, I suppose, kind of a blurred line there. And there you go. You've already taken into account that it's going to come to life at some point on its own, anyways. And you've given it a steward that has a motivation to keep the whole pattern and weaving on track, because that is their form, that is their being, that is what keeps them into existence. And I suppose one could argue there are some moral considerations about using a cost spirit that something like that doesn't include, because there was no spirit that you're essentially cloning its soul into a servitor role. In Boris's case, the magic led me to the skull. And like I said, there's a whole soothing and understanding process. Anytime you're making a cost spirit from a skull, you want to get some idea of what the spirit was, what the animal was like before death, before you try and interact that. And there's a lot of, because they're each individuals. Every single living being is an individual. So every single skull is going to be a little bit different. Like if I'd picked the wrong cow skull, this might not have worked. If it had been someone who had, if it had been a bull who had died in a very traumatic manner, it may have just been too resistant. If I had picked a wild bull that had no correlation to humans and the idea of cooperating with humans, he might not have been willing to calmly be soothed. He might not have been willing to take on the role. And that's just why it needed to be a very specific, large, domesticated bull and a skull that I was actually drawn to have even the right personality to perform the functions that were requested or desired. So that is kind of how we got way off track, but that's what we want to do with the creation of a hyper sigil. Because those things, both of those things are inevitable. As soon as it starts getting shared outside of your own circle, if it's you and your coven and you've all agreed on what a sigil is and what it's for, you don't need to take that into consideration too much. If somebody, depending on how it's being used, even then it can still start taking on a life force of its own. But it shouldn't alter too much with repetition, as long as you all understand exactly what the sigil is for and all use it the same way. But once it gets shared outside of that circle, now you need something to keep the pattern in place. You need something to keep the original form from being altered by misuse or misunderstanding. And so, like I say, you create a servitor or something like that. Now, for some reason, seals do not seem to be affected in the same way. Like some of these really old sigils, essentially all the seal is a sigil that is extremely old. And I think that's because there is, oh, hey, Black Unigriffin, I'm glad you was able to make it. I was beginning to wonder. I'm glad you're here. But what was I saying? Let's see. I was on about sigils, needing a pattern to lock them into place. This is where I struggle. Oh, I have too many ideas once my creative juices are sparked. And then this is where I struggle. I think keeping a working going, a lot of times my workings fizzle out or run their full course. Oh, one of the things that I had to that's one of the things I find radionics useful for. And you don't really need a whole lot of technical things. You just need an antenna with a box and a little knob, and you tell yourself that you are turning the knob to set the sigil to the right frequency, and then you can just set it and forget it. Just walk away from that and just leave it sitting on the shelf with the thing there, and it's actually quite powerful because there's a lot of theater of science in our world right now. So it's a very easy narrative. It's a very easy context. Oh, you had to fix your notification settings. Well, I'm glad you did. Glad to see you here. Yeah, that's hyper sigils. You need to once they've broken outside of that group. I feel like I've lost track of myself. Let's get back on track here. Um, yeah, hyper sigils. It's a very powerful thing. As much as all the thing I'm talking about and how much of a pain it is to share things outside of your circle, there are reasons to do so. If you can get if you can get your concept fully out into the collective consciousness, it becomes something more. That's the reason the cash cow sigil is actually in my room bag that I do for readings, is because it is carried forth. It has become a symbol of something more than the sum of its parts. It has, it gains a power. It gains a coherence in the collective consciousness once it goes out there far enough. Of course, it becomes no longer just yours. In this particular case, it never was, because I created the cash cow sigil with the intention of sharing it with people outside of my circle. And it was never mine, it was Boris's. And that's why I talked before about. Oh, absolutely, yes. It is one of the most powerful sigil. It is one of the most powerful sigils I've ever created. I have had lots of people get back to me and say, "Hey, thank you so much for this. It's gotten me this job. It got had money appear out of nowhere in a few cases." Um, the only complaint that I have ever had is sometimes people say when they first use it, all the energy around them decreases, but that's because he consumes all the problem energy. He takes away all the patterns that are leading to bad places, and then leaves behind better opportunities, more openings. He leaves behind ability, stability, abundance, and group harmony. And it has been, like I say, by far one of the most successful sigils I've ever used. It's helped me many times. While I was in Seattle, things weren't going very well, but drawing the sigil allowed me to at least keep going, at least keep things on track. There's actually some, there was a point where the ghost tour company that I was working for out there in Seattle, and that's why part of the reason I'm not in Seattle anymore is they tried to pay me a lot less than they agreed to. And because of the cash cow sigil, even though they intended to pay me a smaller amount, they had a glitch in their system and paid me the amount they had agreed to, which they then couldn't rightfully take back because I had proof that they had actually agreed to pay me that amount. It was later on that it was after the agreement that then tried to tell me that things were different. Either way, the Boris kept things from going that way, and I was able to at least continue to pay my rent for the full term of the lease there. And yeah, he's helpful for that. Sometimes there's been a few times I've needed his help up here, so I've used the sigil up here in Canada, and it helps. I need a little more stability in certain things right now and a little more abundance because I'm not able to get a job up here. I'm not able to get a regular job. In fact, you're going to see me advertising my services on here more often because I need a little more abundance at this point myself. And so that's part of the reason I decided to go ahead and do one of these big drives for the cash cow sigil. But also, I don't have Boris myself anymore. I am no longer the steward's steward because I couldn't bring him into Canada. I actually gave him to one of my friends that in the community that, well, I let Boris choose who he wanted to go with, and this is the person that was the person that he chose. So I went ahead and mailed them Boris before I left for Canada this last time because he's not allowed up here. There's a whole story about that we could get into in a bit, but yeah. So let's see, what was my point? I I'm no longer the steward of the steward. I got lost again. We could try and blame the pot, but you should see what I'm like without it. This is well, you don't want to see me on Ritalin. I become almost a normal person. I didn't like that. But yeah, this is my ADD meds. Without it, I really get lost and wander off in my head. Okay, so what was I saying? The cash cow sigil, hyper sigils, Seattle. I told you I was talking about that. Yeah. Definitely one of the most successful sigils I've ever worked with. Not the most powerful of my creations, but it's one of that's up there. Maybe because of some other stuff when you're the actual steward of the sigil, some other things that have gone on. But like I said, I'm no longer the steward. I remember that's where I was last. Oh yes, they are going on a road trip that involves stuff that they asked Boris for, stuff that they did with the cash cow sigil, and part with the eating up the negative and replacing it with good. And that request actually resulted in them now going on a road trip that they're being paid to go on that will take them where they need to go to fulfill the rest of the request. And so I felt that was another good reason to do one of these pushes. To do one of these times where we all put out the sigil at once, give Boris an extra oomph. She could use it for that. Excuse me. She's doing a big groove, a large road trip around Boris and the things that she requested from him. And I need stuff myself. Like I said, you're gonna see me offering my services a lot more on this channel because um it seems like might take longer than I thought to get that open work visa, and I can't get a job up here. So I'm going to be offering my services a lot more. I need a bit more abundance in my own life, and that's why we're through the cash cow sigil here today. From now on, you're going to see it on the wall back there when I go on my lives, and it'll slowly get more and more decorated over time and enhanced. Give it color. Usually I work with oil pastels, but I thought I had some waiting in that drawer, and then I went over there to get them, and they weren't there. So we started with a Sharpie, but that's okay. Unexpected that can be used as a unexpected depth because the Sharpie goes into the canvas farther, into the material of the canvas farther than the oil pastels would have, and won't smear. So they'll probably do oil pastels all the way around it. That's my preferred medium. If you couldn't tell. All right, you have a good night, GCC Studio. I hope I answered your question sufficiently. That is absolutely okay, Romstead. Will I be publishing a book? I've actually already published two, both of which have some talk about Boris in them. I'll give you a link to that as well. Stick that into the chat here because, well, I would love to sell, frankly, I'd love to sell some more books. Oh, it's gonna be a dingus about it. Oh, there we go. Don't be a dingus. Oh, that's not what I wanted. That's not where I was trying to go, you freaking thing. Volume 1. There we go. Oh, that's where I messed up. Thought I wanted to change the... Let's see. I think this works for sharing. Yep. Pretty sure. That's volume 1 there. And it's well, actually both of the volumes, volume 1 and volume 2, I have a playlist that goes with them. But from here, you should be able to get to all of the books that I've written so far. Yeah, that's volume 1. That one took me years to write. It's only 100 and something pages, but it took me 30 plus years to acquire the knowledge to be able to write that kind of information down in only 115 pages and make it understandable. You know, it took me a long time to understand the formulas and the laws that are in there and to be able to put them down so coherently. Anyways, so yeah, that's a link to Sorcerer's Shadow Volume 1. Also a Volume 2 and a little bit of my nonfiction work as well available. Yeah, that's all that's available at the moment. Volume 1, Volume 2, and Anarchy's Last Stand, which is an example of my fictional works. Okay, so let's see. Hyper sigils. Said quite a bit about the hyper sigils already. But I'm going to we'll probably not be on for at least another half hour or so. And we're also going to do Romstead's stick breaking before we go. Yeah. So speaking of Romstead's stick breaking, that's the other thing that I was supposed to make sure I plugged, and then I'll try to get out of I'll get out of salesman mode. But I have a memberships available, and the first level is 99 cents. That's basically just for supporting the channel. You would get access to any members only videos that I make. That's going to be bloopers, fun stuff, because I don't want to put anything useful or important behind a paywall. Awesome. I'm glad that you're finding the hypnosis playlist useful, and I would love to hear your update on the cash cow and blood magic. Oh, absolutely. The self hypnosis is a big part of why I'm as high functioning as I am, because I've got pretty severe ADD and autism. Well, I'm not sure how severe the autism part is, but the ADD part is definitely You know, I got diagnosed in like the second grade. But yeah, self hypnosis is a big part of what got me to get control of my mind and keep me from wandering off. That and the marijuana. Marijuana helps. And it is definitely useful for programming sigils into the subconscious mind. Okay, so that's what I was talking about. And then from there, the next is 99 cents, and then 9.99. For 9.99 a month, you get stick break. You get I believe it's 3 stick breakings a month, and then they go up from there. I can't remember the price, but the one after that is you get a spell or a reading every month. And then the one above that, the highest level, you get personal lessons or question and answer session once a month, like 45 minutes a month. And that'd be like on a personal live. Of course, that'd have to be scheduled. Okay, that's enough plugging that stuff. Like I said, we're going to do a summary. So, the cash cow sigil. The cash cow sigil is created from Fehu and Taurus. Behind the cash cow sigil is its steward, Horus, which is a cow skull, the ghost of a bull that has been reanimated to go out and remove errant patterns, things that are creating problems and blocks in your life, eating those up and replacing them with abundance, stability, and group harmony. Um, so when we cast the cash cow, when we use the cash cow sigil, in a way, we are almost summoning Boris to come and do his work. And as he passes through, his pathway leaves a better pattern behind. That's kind of a, what do you call it? That's kind of a gray area, whether it's a summoning or a sigil. It's both in a way. But it is yeah, traits abilities, stability, abundance, and group harmony. I keep saying ability, creates ability. This is not an ability sigil. Those do exist. Yes. The stick breaking. It seems like there's been a lot of obstacles cropping up lately, specifically doing with undermining stability and prosperity. So I'm guessing that's the I guess that's the thematic to the episode. Indeed. I was hoping you could try and hone in on that. I was just thinking about that as I was talking about some of the stuff with Boris. I do have to do another intermission. Be right back. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. Indeed. So yeah, but like I said, I was thinking about that myself as I was talking about how it creates stability and okay. So, we are almost to the stick break. You know what? As we're talking about the stick breaking and all of that, it's not like we have to end the episode right at the stick breaking. Let's go ahead and get that taken care of. Just a moment. That's not the stick I want. Where are that bag of sticks? May have to have a little bit different type of intermission. Ah, we use one of these ones today. Purposely. It's important to not purpose. It's important to not accidentally pick a stick that is hard to break. There we are. Yeah, there's no reason you couldn't use a slip of paper. There's no reason you couldn't use a thread and some scissors because it is a symbol, a metaphor for what you were doing. You just need something, a vessel to draw the line of fade into. I use sticks because this is the method that was passed down to me. Okay, so draw that pattern into the stick. Read that through one more time. Stick breaking seems like there's been a lot of obstacles cropping up lately, especially to do with undermining stability and prosperity. Anything breaking up the stability of the homestead, stability and prosperity of the homestead. Anything drawing away anything that would destroy the stability and prosperity of the homestead. Anything that would harm the homestead. All that, any of those patterns, any of those lines of fates into the stick. And then there we are. Okay, so that's our stick breaking for the evening. And yeah, that's part of the membership thing. That you can have them done here on this live on Saturday or possibly on Wednesday as well. Because we are still doing that. The book clubs on Wednesday nights. We're up to the library knocks at this point. But if you do get the membership and do the stick breaking, it doesn't have to be done on the live, just to be clear. Quite a few of them have been done off the live. And I actually had a reading from a member a little while back that same thing. They didn't you can have those done on the live, but they don't have to be. And if you were to contact me through the Gmail and want your reading to be done on the live, you could have that done, but it'd be a little extra charge on top of the regular charge if you're not already a member. If you're not already a member of the channel. there's got to be, this still has to be the perk. Anyways, um, so like I said, I was going to summarize the cash cow sigil. It is to create ability, stability, abundance, and group harmony. It is stewarded by Boris the Badass is actually his full name. There is a breakdown of how he was created on the link to Amazon, on the Amazon link there in the Sorcerer's Shadow Volume 1. In Volume 2, I talk some more about how to use him. But it's a very simple process, how to use the Cash Cow Sigil. Simply draw the sigil, charge it, and keep it on you. You can say Hell Boris as you're doing it if you desire. Could I pin that one too? I could, but it would change the pin. It's only a replace. But we've had the other one up long enough. We could put this one up for a while. So yeah, now it's the pinned message. That's for Sorcerer's Shadow Volume 1. It's $9.99, and it comes with an entire playlist for Sorcerer's Shadow Volume 1. You'll find that on the YouTube channel, but it's the same with Volume 2. Both of them, I've done a video for just about every essay in the book. Second one, I missed. There's a few I still haven't done because my mom died as I was getting to that point, and it was right as I'm talking about ancestry work, and it was just too hard. It was just too hard. I haven't gotten back to it yet. So, but I do the rest of the stuff. We just haven't talked about them little bits there. Anyways, let's see. What else? Oh yes. Charging the sigil can be as easy as simply drawing it, saying Hell Boris. I like to blow smoke on it because he responds well to that. Either nicotine or THC, if THC is legal in your area. If you don't smoke any of the above, a little bit of incense is also nice. Give him some alfalfa, some grass from the yard. Anything like that enhances the power of the sigil because it draws him quicker when there are things that he wants where he's going. And it's just, good for him. That being said, if for some reason you don't have access to any of the above, you can just draw the sigil and charge it. Just charging it brings it out, gives that creation, and that as well is something that brings him in because you were creating a larger web. It brings in that stability, abundance, and group harmony. Hey, I said it right the first time. I've said it right the first time that time. Right. So what else have we got going? Okay, I haven't summarized the whole thing. We summarized the bit about Cash Cow Sigil, but also money magic was what we talked about next. And I talked about a few things with money magic. Personally, I've always struggled with money magic because, this is the one I'll talk about the one I did mention first because I have struggled with the intent of wanting money. I see money itself as an illusion. It is a delusion. It is something that keeps us focused on the wrong values in life. That is what allows people to hoard resources, is because they have these false tickets of value, which are easy to deny other people. But if you saw a starving person in the street and you had more bread than you could hold in your hand, you'd be hard pressed not to toss them a bun. But when you've got enough money to feed him and his whole village for 500 years, as little symbols in your pocket, it's not that hard to deny somebody that. At least it isn't for some people, clearly. But if they had more bread than they could hold, it'd be much harder to hoard. And it would go bad, I suppose, right? You can't keep bread forever unless it's like some kind of elven hardtack or something. Anyways, so this is the problems that I've faced. This is the problem I've always faced with money magic. And for me, then, the key is to seek abundance rather than money, or cast for the things I actually want the money for, is another thing that I've worked. Rather than just casting to get the money, I cast for the thing that I want that I'm going to need money to get. That has helped before as well. Yeah, finding little ways to work around the money thing. Another thing I have found that is helpful, I wanted to hit that bit there again about the color green. Money is only green in the United States. So there's a bit of a green is the color of money thing in a lot of money magic, but that doesn't resonate with everybody. And that's another one of these kind of delusions out there. That being said, I do still use green in a lot of my money magic because it's still growth and abundance and a lot of the things that I actually wind up casting for with money magic. The most powerful method I've found for actually just doing money is got the remnants here behind me in this aquarium with the green water here. That is dye and salt. Yeah, a metal color like gold. Gold is probably a better color for money spells. There's more of a worldwide resonance with the idea of gold being money than there is the color green for sure. But this vessel here behind me has in the States operated great. You can see it's based on the color green, but also I boiled a lot of money, actually sacrificed money because money draws money. It doesn't seem to be working as powerfully here in Canada. And I think that might be because, well, the money's not green, but also all the money used in the creation of that salt. And it could be because it's not evaporating, come to think of it. But all the money used in the creation of that salt was American money, which is different than Canadian money. Green has a lot of filters based on Magic: The Gathering inference. Oh, you have a good point there. Magic: The Gathering. You've got the green mana. Yeah, if someone's played a lot of that, that's going to affect the resonance. I think gold is probably a much better selection. I don't know how I get gold food coloring to change that over, but I don't know. That particular spell needs some reconfiguring now that I'm looking for different money. I think Boris seems to work just as fine up here. Whenever I've invoked Boris, that's worked out quite well. But this thing, I messed with it quite a bunch and doesn't seem to be getting anywhere. I'm actually at the moment trying to bring life into it, so I am working with a different concept. I've got brine shrimp in there. And brine shrimp eggs. Just trying to bring the life force into it. Maybe that's just not going to work. The whole money is a delusion thing is just too hardcore for that to work out that way. Maybe work in progress. Odd side research. Look into the game color pie. It's pretty well rounded. I'm not sure what that means. Odd side research. Look into the game color. Yeah, I don't understand. Oh, Magic the Gathering color. Yeah, it's been a long time since I played Magic the Gathering, honestly, and that's probably why I didn't catch on to what you were saying there. I used to play a long time ago. It's a fun game. Um. So yeah, let's see. There was something more I was gonna. Oh, the other thing that I have found is problematic with me in doing money magic is I tend not to view myself as someone who has money. And there's that paradigm shift that needs to go into that. But it's a difficult one. That's a difficult one for me to think of myself as someone who has lots of money. I mean, I didn't exactly grow up poor. I didn't grow up wealthy, but middle class. We lived in a trailer till I was 11, 10, 11, something like that. Yeah, I think I was still 10 when we moved out. Anyways, um yeah, finishing the doing the summary. So we talked about that, and then we got into hyper sigils, and we started with why Boris was created the way that he was because he was a hyper sigil. And we defined what a hyper sigil is. You have sigils that you use yourself, and then you have sigils you use yourself more than once and repeat. Not everybody does that. Excuse me. I recommend it. Once you found a sigil that works, they have a momentum of success behind that sigil. So once you have successfully created the sigil and had it work, you can use it again for that same purpose, as long as it's something that's that useful. And then for me, once I've repeated that a few times, I will actually eventually put that sigil into my rune bag. My rune bag has all kinds of different sigils in it. It's got all kinds of different charms and things that have just announced themselves to me. But anytime I use a sigil a few times and it has been effective each time, now it also becomes to represent that thing. And then once you have something like that, if you share it amongst your friends, it's still just a sigil. And it really anything doesn't have to be one with the successes behind it. But you have sigils that you use yourself, and then you have sigils that you share with a group of people. And when you share a sigil with a group of people, as long as there's clear understanding between each participant involved, then the sigil shouldn't lose form over time. You should be able to repeat it and create momentum and keep that same pattern so that it still does what it's supposed to do. But the moment you share it with someone outside that circle that doesn't fully understand what's going on and isn't part of the collective consciousness that is aware of it, it's repetition. Each repetition will alter it slightly and will increase the odds of it becoming something of its own exponentially. Canadian dollar coins are gold colored. This is a very good point. Anyways, we'll get to back to that in a moment. I have some thoughts, but I want to finish this up. So the moment you share something outside of your circle, the tendency for it to become something more increases. And if that thing goes viral and lots of people use it, now you have a hyper sigil. And if you have anything that might become a hyper sigil at least before you share it, but if you intend to share it, you should create this from the beginning. It needs to have some sort of steward. In the case of the cash cow sigil, because I intended this from the beginning for it to go viral from the beginning, and the fact that I wanted it to be as powerful and as sealed into its pattern as possible, I created a steward from a caw of a large bull. that I had essentially been drawn to for this purpose. But anyways, you want to go ahead and just go with the fact that it's going to become aware at some point and create a servitor or tulpa connected to the sigil that will keep it on track. Because there's your other problem. Anytime you share a sigil with each repetition of anyone that doesn't fully understand it in exactly the same way you do, it can alter the form of the sigil. It can change the way that it manifests unless you have something locking it in place, like a steward. So if you add both of those things to the hyper sigil, that should keep it on track. The more powerful and strong you can make the steward in the first place, the safer it is to share amongst larger amounts of people. The same phenomena is why things like four-leaf clovers and horseshoes don't work without having something extra hooked to them, without actually driving into the momentum. If you just slap up a horseshoe and don't reassert that actual pattern, you just kind of think, oh yeah, this is supposed to be good luck. It's not enough, right? Because there's that repetition with that, but it's been repeated so many times that it's just everywhere now. It's dispersed. It's just, it has no cohesion to it. So if you want a horseshoe to actually still be good luck, you've got to charge it and actually put oomph into it yourself, because the momentum is all spread out all over the place because its pattern wasn't locked in well enough. Now, seals, and I think I actually got distracted when I was talking about this before. I don't think I finished this. Seals, the reason the seals work is because they were shared amongst those in the know for a very long time, until that pattern was completely compressed, completely condensed down into what those seals are. So by the time they got shared to the point they are now, they had already become seals. They had become sealed to what they are, right? And so that's why, I mean, you still need to use the seal properly. Just having one of these seals on your wall without knowing what it is isn't going to have much of an effect. Could have some, and slipping a seal into someone's place with you knowing what it is. There you go. Someone knowing what it is, someone acknowledging it is what gets it to work. Yeah. But the reason those haven't suffered from as much repetition indiscrepancy, clone drift, whatever that term is, from when something gets repeated so many times that it gets fuzzier with each repetition until it's way out there. The reason they haven't suffered as much from that is because of how long they were kept secret amongst collective, and you have all these people secretly knowing about this thing and having the same understanding of it and sharing it amongst themselves until it got real condensed. I keep wanting to call it like an heirloom sigil as opposed to all the non-heirloom, like with seeds. Yeah. Anyways, so that's the bit about hyper sigils, and we talked about some examples like the Ellis sigil, even though it's actually still a very powerful and usable hyper sigil, and probably the best example of a hyper sigil. It suffers from a lot of these problems. It developed an awareness on its own, which turned into a useful being in a lot of ways, but it can be very unpredictable. And the sigil itself can be very unpredictable because a lot of people charge it. Oh, here I go coughing. Just a second. It can be very unpredictable because of the amount of different strange things it has been subjected to. It was used as a intent of gathering all that momentum, all that charge of everyone charging the same sigil, and then you could draw into that charge to charge your own sigils. But the momentum, all these different jangled momentums mixed together, and there's nothing forming it into a cohesive pattern. So it can be wild all over the place and unpredictable. Meditating on the Ellis sigil is a very interesting experience. If you haven't done it, actually, I do recommend. Have your own personal sigil already. Have something to pull yourself, at least have some method to reground yourself and pull yourself back into yourself. Either a personal sigil to meditate on, to draw yourself back into your own form, or something. Because when you visualize the Ellis and meditate on it, it's like grabbing onto a live wire. It's a thing. You'll understand what I mean about how a hypersigil can become very powerful and unpredictable under those kind of circumstances. I do recommend working with the Ellis. I've done a lot of work with the Ellis and was actually involved with some of the projects that we've been doing with the S1 project and attempting to repair the balance of the spheres through sigil craft. We actually had a part where we connected the S1 and the Ellis together. Upon this mark, I reunite the spheres. But like I said, it's also a perfect example of how things can go wrong because it's unpredictable. It had its own servitor rise up, its own consciousness created over time. And not actually a bad thing. I'm rather fond of the being Ellis that was created from the sigil. I've worked with them many times. But the sigil itself, it's so unpredictable and what kind of momentum and charge it's going to give. And different sigils require different charges. So you have to use a filter sigil on top of the Ellis in order to purify it into what you need. And that can be anything. You can even just use the word filter. Create a sigil out of the word filter and add that to the Ellis sigil and your original sigil because that's what it's for, is to charge other sigils. It's like a way of getting a group charge without having to post your sigil in a group and be like, everybody charge my sigil. You have the linking sigil. You can just attach to it, and how many people have charged it over time in all these different ways. But at this point, if you use it, draw a condom in between the linking sigil and the sigil you're actually trying to charge with it, like some kind of filter. Anyways, I think we may be getting towards the end of today's live. If anyone has any comments, questions, or suggestions about the stuff we've covered today, now would be a great time to ask those questions. I appreciate you all being here. Glad to see you all. This has been a lot of fun. I'm actually starting to really like these. I kind of wish I had gone on last week. Honestly, the reason I didn't come on last week is I was just exhausted. It's been a long day. And I just didn't think I had it in me. I didn't think I had the spell slots or spoons to do the live. But I'm finding this really doesn't take a lot of spoons. Once I get on here and start talking, starting to see you all as my friends. Starting to have some regulars who I really like talking to, and this is starting to be a lot of fun. Yeah, I've got a little bit of a drink left here. Let's see. What else do I have to talk about? Um, yeah, in my own life, things are going well for the most part. Working on my immigration status up here to get the spousal sponsorship finished with me and Felix and I. Um, Trouble is, there's all kinds of people trying to immigrate to Canada right now, so the system's a little jammed up. It's actually 25 months processing time for the spousal sponsorship at this point. So I'm going to be in this position for a while. So once again, we have books for sale. We also have, if you look up in the chat, my email is joshuawittershins@gmail.com. You can contact me there if you're interested in any of my sorcery services. And you're probably going to see me going live just randomly, periodically throughout the week at this point, just to talk about my runes or different stuff. You'll probably see me a lot more. Just random times. When those come on, I'll probably mostly be talking about tarot cards or runes, that sort of thing. Anyways, yeah. Those are the updates on my personal life. I'm stuck in limbo for 2 years. Hopefully, I'll get my open. I'm actually applying for an open work visa. Hopefully, I'll get that, and that'll help. But for the moment, I pretty much have to make all my money online. Okay, worry about. Oh, nice! We're doing a push the Cash Cow Sigil on Facebook as well. Someone just drew it on their hand. Jody Patrine's got quite a few fun places they have put it. And yeah, the more people that draw the sigil, the better. Got just a little bit of my drink left here. When this is gone, we're gonna go ahead and call the live. Dinner's sitting in the kitchen, looks real good. Like I said, we got a new mic. I hope people are liking the mic. I haven't seen this many. I haven't seen the number shoot up and then drop so quickly. Yes, there is a lot of similarity between the Ellis sigil and the S1. And talking to Ryan Lloyd, who is at least the person that claims to be the originator of the LS sigil, they actually even worked on it around the same time that I did. But yes, the S1 and the Ellis look very similar. I had not seen the Ellis when I drew the S1, nor had they seen the S1 when they started with the Ellis. But they are very connected and actually in some ways always have been. Mine, however, the S1, that as well has many stewards, myself being one of them. And when I originally created that, I did not know that it was going to be a hyper sigil. In fact, it stands for Society of One, which had a very similar idea to the linking sigil, and that there were people that that created a society, but it was also each one of us was on our own, each one of us an individual, but part of a community at the same time. And I was the only corporal being connected to that. And the first real use that I had for the S1 sigil was to mark the spot I went when I died when I was a kid. Because when I was overdosed on anesthesia at the age of 8, I died for a moment and was on the edge of the nothing. And when I finally found a way to meditate myself back to that point at the age of 15, I needed something to mark that moment. The print on demand thing with all yeah, the Redbubble stuff. I could find a link for that here in a moment. Ellis is quite the personality, humorous. S1 so far seems a bit dry. Haven't noticed him to make show of his Oh, there is no presence like that to the S1 sigil. It did get it I did wind up sharing it with the outside community, but it has the same thing with the seal because I used it to mark that spot. And that's where I first started connecting with the beings I now call the audience, but I used to call the horde, was through the S1 sigil. This is where it's kind of the astral equivalent of the linking sigil. Like the linking sigil is more on the material side of reality, while the S1 sigil is essentially how I started having contact with the horde from being on the edge of the nothing. Because I died during a surgery when I was 8. I found myself on the edge of the nothing. And then, because they used a cherry flavored anesthesia. And then later on, at the age of 15, I smoked a cherry flavored cigarette. And that flavor of the cherry vapor was enough of a sense memory to get me back into that moment, back into that place. And I needed a way to mark it. And I used the S1 sigil. And then from going to the S1 sigil, I began getting contact with the audience. And so we've been using it there. And there's a lot of very powerful astral beings connected to that sigil. So it never did that. Even though it's been shared enough and used enough that, yeah, it could be considered a hyper sigil, it was already a thing marking a space. So you won't find any personality to the S1. You will, however, eventually contact horde members. Oh, thank you, Felix. That there, we'll make that the pinned post for the last little bit of the live. Whoops, that. Replace pinned message. There we go. Okay. So that one there is for Redbubble. And that will get you here. Let's go ahead and just go over here for a minute. Yeah, Ellis very much has a personality. So yeah, Ellis is a very good thing. That's probably we'll go ahead and do the last bit of the live here. Checking out this stuff here. Let me see. Let me get back over here. Share. There we are. Like I said, we kind of just want to show this off. All right, I gotta be over here to be able to move anything. All right. So this is Boris. The green. And there's some real fun different things here. There's some shirts. Hats. Phone covers. What's that? A desk mat. Oh, they've actually added some new stuff. The baseball cap's new. They just kind of stuck that one in there, I guess. Bunch of different shirts. Trying to get down to the shower curtain because that's the one Felix is particularly proud of. Fossy Stas. I don't think that's how I left it. Oh, I must have because that's That's pretty cool. Felix they must have done that one, eh? Whoops. Got a Vesica Pisces in this sigil. No, no, no. Cancel. Oh, that's what I. Okay, that gets confusing. Okay, there we go. Get to the shower curtain. We got socks, notebooks. Where the heck is the shower curtain? There is a shower curtain. I remember you spending all kinds of time trying to get the shower curtain just right. Weird. Stickers. Shower curtains. Ah, there we are. Oh yeah, because it's the same design. That's the shower curtain. That did turn out pretty cool, though, I have to admit. Okay, so there we go. That's that. And the sharing of that for now. I first used Ellis in my dream work, and she put me on a circle of dancing painted cows. Then one of them plopped on top of me. Boom. Woke me up. Yes, this is, like you say, the Ellis has a lot of humor. When it was originally created, it was created not just as a linking sigil, like I was talking about, but also with a pranking of reality. So from the very beginning, there was an idea of humor associated with the Ellis sigil. A kind of concept of absurdity. So you get a lot of that. A lot of just strange silliness. A lot of people talk about Ellis appearing as a spider. I haven't had that experience myself, but it seems like spider things are a bit territorial of each other. Like back in the day, I referred to a few spiders by a Caribbean name, starts with an A, that I'm really not supposed to even say, because after that, I started having dreams about Iktomi. And I actually had this experience where I was calling one spider the other name, and this other spider came up and they like fought over me. And then, like, after they were done, the one that was Iktomi came down and was just like there looking at me. And that's who I work with. I've had lots of dreams about Iktomi. And we've done a lot of work together. And I think maybe that's why Ellis doesn't appear as a spider to me like they do as to some, because that role has been spoken for. Or it could be just a thing between Iktomi and that other spirit altogether. They're both trickster gods as well. You know, both spider trickster gods. Both from North America, but one's from the Caribbean and one's I believe it's the Cheyenne that follow Iktomi. It's not my people. But that's the spider spirit I work with. Anyways, I feel like this has been a pretty good live. I've almost finished my little bit of alcohol here. Probably be going fairly soon here. Um, like I said, I'm glad to see you all. I hope that I was able to impart the concepts of what I was talking about well. And like I said, if anyone has any questions, comments, concerns about the live or anything else on my channel, now would be a good time to ask that question. Otherwise, we'll be going here in just a minute. Okay. That was the last sip of my alcohol there then. Let's see, anything else I want to say? The email, once again, is jesselwittershins@gmail.com. You can find it in the chat. Jeshel Wittershins is actually clockwise, counterclockwise, but it sounds like a name to me. I'm probably going to be making a Tulpa. Well, he is the name of the Chaos Mage in the books that I'm working on. One of them is actually the books that I mentioned there. That's one of my works of fiction. He's in there. If you decide you're interested in that, I feel like it's like the perfect name for a fictional Chaos Mage, Jeshel Wittershins. Anyways, think we're done for the night then. I hope I'll see you all again soon. Like I said, I will be going live again Wednesday. We are at, for the book club, we are at Liber Knox. And I should be posting some about that during the week or during the next few days before the live. I'll try to remember to do it in the chat here as well. Any special techniques for activating the sigil? The cash cow sigil? Like I said, if you smoke blowing tobacco or vape, THC, anything like that on it is one of the primary methods of charge, but you can charge just like normal. You can charge it in any method. If you don't use the vape or if you don't use nicotine or THC, I do recommend leaving a little bit of grass somewhere, like in front of the sigil for a little bit, from your lawn clippings from the front yard, maybe a bit of alfalfa, whatever you have that you could leave for Boris. Just as a small bit of an offering. It's not necessary, but it does seem to help if you give an offering to Boris as well. Okay. Well, that dinner inside is really calling my name. We're going to go ahead and end this here. Thank you once again for joining us. I hope to see you again next time. Bright blessings. Boris is going to make people touch grass. Yeah. Okay, well, anyways. Bright blessings and an interesting fate. This has been Sorcerer Tal.